Hello everyone. In Art Live for the week of April 20 through April 24, we looked at the principle of design named balance. There are three types of visual balance: asymmetrical balance, symmetrical balance, and radial balance. Before we explore these, I would like to take your mind back to the first art project that we did. Why, you may ask? Well, in that art project, you were exposed to a number of the principles of design. Principles of design. These are the principles that we use to organize the different elements of art in order to create a good artwork. With this first project, we used a very simple technique of repeating triangle after triangle after triangle after triangle in an interesting way to create an artwork. This act of repeating is the principle named repetition. Some of us tried to do something to make a bit of a focal point, to draw the focus to one area of the artwork. We tried to use the principle named emphasis. And we emphasized things sometimes by adding a contrasting color, sometimes by making a very large shape on our page. There are a number of techniques for emphasis. Contrast is the principle where you really bring out the differences or you minimize the differences. Bringing them out would be doing something like making this a very dark color and this a very light color. It may also mean having very small or very large. Those would be large contrasts. Variety was used in this project by having a variety of sizes from very small through the mediums to the large. Unity occurred because we kept our shape the same and because we colored our background a single color, and most of us did a variety of colors on our shapes. But the single shape and the background being the same throughout were things that we did to create unity. So with this one project, you were exposed to 5 of the principles of design, and we're now going to add the 6th, balance. Have you ever tried to balance a pencil on your finger? When you achieve that balance, the physical weight on either side of your finger is the same. But as you see here, the visual weight might not always show as equal. In this case, it is probably because the eraser of the pencil is denser and therefore heavier than the wood of the pencil. So you need more wood on this side to balance the heavier eraser on this side. This idea of balancing weight is the essential idea of balance. Though in visual terms, it's not the physical weight that is caused by the pull of gravity, it is the visual weight that the objects in our artwork suggest. Let's try to look at this example of pencil in a somewhat graphic way that will lead us into visual weight. The pencil balancing trick shows something about the equality of weight. When one side is heavier, it is a shorter distance from our finger. The lighter side, a longer distance from our finger. So in this case, when the weights are not exactly equal, we find ways to balance them. This graphic representation represents what we would call asymmetry or asymmetrical balance. When the elements being balanced are more equal, like in this example, we don't have to make as many adjustments from some center point or center line. And we call this type of balance symmetry or symmetrical balance. A special case of symmetry, if you would like to think of it that way, is radial balance. It gets its name from the idea of things radiating from a center point. But when we represent it graphically like this and think of this as a finger, then it begins to look like a magical circus trick where somebody is balancing plates on the ends of sticks, holding them all by his or her finger right there. Let's look at some small artistic type examples of these three forms of balance. When we try to create something using asymmetry, we are working with something that is hidden in the word itself. The word comes to us from a Latin heritage and translates as not, together or the same, in measure. You may recognize in the root concept meter a word that we have imported and use frequently in English, meter. We meter things, and we use different types of meters to measure. When we decide to create something using asymmetry, we can think of it in terms of what may have been describing it prior to the word asymmetry. Something may be one-sided or lopsided. We create things with asymmetry or one-sided to create something pleasant with a sense of flow or movement. When you try to put some type of dividing line or center point and look for equality of visual weight on each side, it is challenging to place it so that you find that equality of weight. In contrast, when we're working with symmetry or same measure, it is very easy to see that the visual weight is equal on both sides of a dividing line. We notice this if the division is a left-right divide, as it is looking at it this way, or if it is a top-bottom divide, as it looks now. And even if the divide is on a diagonal, we can easily pick up that we are dealing with symmetrically balanced visual weight. We remove the guiding line, and still we know that this is symmetry very easily. Radial balance is a strong way of organizing things. The strength is implied by the idea that objects organized around a circular pattern are being held in tight to a center by some invisible force. Or alternatively, that things are starting to spread and explode away from the center point in a starburst fashion. When we use radial balance in order to design things, we are making a statement. It is very easy to see, it's very creative to do. And even if we don't see the connection to the center, we can imply the existence of a center and therefore know that we are dealing with radial balance. Let's look at that without the little guidelines. So even here we understand that we are dealing with something that is radially balanced. Now I'm going to send you on a quest. The quest is to find one example of each of the 3 types of balance from objects around your home. I will show you some examples of things that I found around my home. Your quest around the house is to find an example of each of the types of balance. So I'm going to show you some examples from my house. Asymmetrically balanced drill. Asymmetrically balanced tree branch. A hairbrush when seen from its side. A cutting tool. A cleaning bottle. Let me show you some examples of symmetry. A scraping tool. Symmetry means it's the same on 2 sides, whether left, right, or top, bottom. When we look at it, we can divide it down its center. Smoothie bottle, divide down center. Piece of art, a cup, divide down center. This rounded but with a dominant tab, divide down center. Pair of scissors, divide down center. The same hairbrush from earlier but seen from this view, divide down its center. Some examples of radial design. The yogurt, a bottle lid, a soup can, any kind of flower that comes out from its center point. These are fake, not real. I have some real ones in the yard that do that nicely. And finally, let me show you how things can come together to be something different. So here we have a gall. It's a naturally occurring thing on an oak leaf. The gall itself is radial, or very spherical in fact, while the oak leaf has this vein down its center that causes it to be symmetrical. And yet when we look at it as an overall composition, it is asymmetrical. Composition is where we're going with this, learning how to see how an artist has used balance as they have composed their picture or their other form of artwork with multiple elements. Each element could display a different balance than the overall composition. So in your quest, have some fun. Here's a crushed can, for example, that shows asymmetry. And see what you can find around your house, one of each. And let's see what you've got.